Welcome to my channel, Hotspot with Loveth, the ultimate spot for all things entertainment, ranging from celebrity gists, reviews, interesting stories, and African folktales. Subscribe now. Months of back and forth negotiations to convince Tunde to return home proved abortive. His passion for improving the standard of living for workers was unyielding. He couldn't understand how workers could toil for years without increments despite generating profits for the Okafor empire. Why should they be treated like they were less human and deserving of the good things in life? The workers had been too scared to voice their concerns, murmuring their discontent in hushed tones. Tunde was the courage they needed to push for better working conditions. Inspired by Tunde's resolve, the workers organized a strike. Tunde emerged as their leader, demanding for fair wages and better working conditions. He was a beacon of hope, his integrity and empathy resonating deeply with those who had long felt voiceless. The strike, a bold and desperate move, began to take its toll on the Okafor empire. In just 1 month of the strike, the Okafor started facing financial losses. Shipments were delayed, production targets missed, and the company's reputation began to suffer. Bright Okafor, seeing his empire on the brink, tried various tactics to break the strike. He offered small concessions, but Tunde and the workers stood firm. They knew that anything less than a significant change would be insufficient. One afternoon, with the sun beating down on the factory courtyard, Tunde stood before a sea of determined faces. He knew they were weary and anxious about their future, but their resolve was stronger than ever. He stepped up onto a makeshift podium, a stack of wooden pallets, and began to speak. "My brothers and sisters," he started, his voice carrying across the crowd. "For too long, we have been treated as cogs in a machine, as less than human. We have given our sweat, our health, our lives to this company. And what have we received in return? Paltry wages and harsh conditions. Today, we say enough." The crowd roared in agreement, their voices a chorus of pent-up frustration and hope. Tunde raised his hands, signaling for quiet. "Our strength lies in our unity. They can try to intimidate us, they can try to break our spirits, but as long as we stand together, they cannot defeat us. This fight is not just for us, but for our families, for our future. We demand fair wages, safe working conditions, and respect." The workers' cheers were deafening. Tunde's speech solidified his role as their champion. But Bright Okafor was not a man who backed down easily. Determined to crush the strike, he hired thugs to intimidate the workers and sabotage their efforts. The tension escalated, and the atmosphere grew charged with fear and defiance. As Tunde was heading home from a strategy meeting one night with the strike leaders, he was ambushed. A group of men armed with sticks and knives surrounded him in a dark alley. Tunde's heart raced, but he stood his ground. The leader of the thugs stepped forward, sneering, "You think you can bring down the Okafors? You are nothing." Before they could strike, Tunde managed to slip through their grasp, sprinting down the alley and disappearing into the night. The narrow escape only strengthened his resolve and that of the workers. News of the attack spread quickly, fueling their anger and determination. They saw the assault on Tunde as an attack on all of them, a stark reminder of the lengths the Okafors would go to maintain their power. Meanwhile, within the walls of the Okafor's mansion, a different kind of struggle was unfolding. Zola, having witnessed her father's ruthless tactics and her brother's unwavering commitment, began to question the ethics of her family. She had always admired her father's business acumen, but now she saw the darker side of his ambition. The contrast between Tunde's compassion and her father's ruthlessness was stark, and it troubled her deeply. Zola started to spend more time reflecting on the values she had been raised with. She recalled the early days when her parents had built their empire from scratch, back when their ambition seemed pure and their drive inspiring. But somewhere along the way, they had lost sight of the human cost of their success. Zola's growing unease turned into a quiet determination to make a difference. Late one night, unable to sleep, Zola made a decision. She had to talk to Tunde to understand his perspective fully and to offer her support. She slipped out of the mansion, careful not to wake her parents, and drove to the workers' quarters. She found Tunde in a small meeting room, surrounded by the strike leaders. Their discussions were serious, their faces lined with worry but also hope. "Tunde," she called softly from the doorway. He looked up, surprised to see her. "Can we talk?" Tunde excused himself from the meeting and joined Zola outside. The night air was cool, a stark contrast to the tension that had been simmering all day. What are you doing here, Zola? He asked, his voice a mix of curiosity and caution. I needed to see you, she replied. I needed to understand why you are doing this. Why you've turned your back on the life you could have had. Tunde looked at her, his expression softening. I didn't turn my back on anything, Zola. I just couldn't ignore the suffering of the people who made that life possible. They deserve better. Zola nodded, her eyes filling with tears. I see that now. I've been thinking a lot about what's happening, about what kind of family we've become. I want to help Tunde. I don't know how, but I can't stand by and watch our father destroy everything you are fighting for. Tunde felt a surge of hope. Your support means more than you know, Zola. Maybe together, we can find a way to make things right. They spent the next few hours talking, sharing their perspectives and forging a tentative plan. Zola would certainly influence her father's decision. However, she reminded Tunde that our father is a powerful man and he won't give up easily. I know, Tunde replied, a determined look in his eyes. But neither will we. In the following days, Zola began to put their plan into action. She listened carefully during family meetings, noting her father's strategies and subtly suggesting more humane alternatives. She planted seeds of doubt in his mind about the long-term viability of using intimidation and force. Meanwhile, Tunde continued to rally the workers, organizing peaceful protests and gaining support from local community. The strike gained momentum, drawing the attention of the media and local politicians. Public opinions began to shift in favor of the workers, and the pressure on the Okafor Empire intensified. Bright, feeling the heat, was forced to reconsider his stance. He saw the writing on the wall. Continuing his hardline approach would only lead to more financial losses and irreparable damage to his reputation. One evening, after a particularly heated board meeting, Bright retreated to his study. Lost in thought, he was a man used to winning, to bending the world to his will. But this time, the stakes were different. This time, it was his own son leading the charge against him. As he sat in the dimly lit room, nursing a glass of whiskey, Zola entered quietly. She approached her father, her heart pounding. Dad, we need to talk. Bright looked up, his eyes wary. What is it, Zola? I know this is hard for you, she began, choosing her words carefully. But Sunday is right. The workers deserve better. Fighting against him, against them, is only hurting us all. Bright sighed deeply, the weight of the past months evident in his features. Dad, I met with Tunde and I understand his stance and plight. And I'm solidly behind him, if that's what it will take to have my brother back. Zola said, her voice steady but filled with emotion. Bright's face twisted in anger, his eyes narrowing. How dare you? How dare you meet that bastard behind my back and throw your support to him and not your father? Zola, I raised you. You dare not betray your father. Zola took a deep breath, steeling herself against his fury. Dad, this isn't about betrayal. It's about doing what's right. The workers are suffering and Tunde's only asking for fairness. Can't you see that this is about more than just our family? It's about humanity. Bright stood up, his fist clenched. You think you know better than me? Everything I've done for this family, for you. I know, Dad, Zola said, her voice softening. But sometimes, the hardest thing to do is to admit that we have been wrong. This is our chance to make things right. For Chidi, that is Tunde, whom we have found after all these years of seeking. For the workers, for all of us.